Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, let's discuss how to do machine coding project for Splitwise. So, to the people who don't know Splitwise, using Splitwise, the main objective is to make lending easy. If at all there are four friends and one of the friend is paying entire bill, so remaining three friends should should uh, should be in debt with the user one, and our application should take this lending and maintaining this debt. That's what the splitwise is about. So let us go to the xcode and let us create a new project for splitwise. So I'm creating a new, let me create a new project and new command line tool, new command line project. So let me create a command line project, then splitwise. Let me create on desktop and then so in case you did not watch the machine coding concepts video, please watch that as a prerequisite so that we will know, so that you will know the design patterns that are needed to create a machine coding project, and also the namespaces and modules which are needed. Okay, so I will give the link of the machine coding concepts video in the description. Please go through it before this video. So without any further ado, let me create the splitwise project. Let me first create groups. So definitely I would need a models group for creating all the models of the project. Then I would need a repository to store the data. Like, think of it as a database model. Then we would need service model which exposes the main interface. Then um, let us take the input from the command line. So whenever in input we can say something like split the bill equally among four users and user one has paid the amount. Okay, that's what we can give in the command line string. And let us create a commands module which takes the input string and creates appropriate command out and then run it. Then let me also create exceptions. Now whenever a user is adding the bill, he might be adding, say, let us say bill amount as 125, and then user one has paid, and the involved people in the bill are user one, user two, user three. So this says that user one has paid the entire bill, and user one, user two, user three are the involved people, and split the bill equally. Let us say we we also add different strategy to split the bill. Okay, instead of equal strategy, let us do exact strategy, where we can add the bill amount as 125 rupees and the people who are involved as user 1, user 2, user 3. But instead of splitting the bill equally, let us take the input how to split as well. Let us say user 1 has paid the bill and user 2 is 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 he still needs to pay only 100 rupees, and then user 3 needs to pay 25 rupees, something like that. where instead of equal split, take the split from the command itself. So this way, user who is adding the bill can split accordingly and also have better control. So basically, we are having two strategies to split the bill. One is exact and other is equal. Yeah, I think these are some of the modules that are needed for Splitwise. Let us quickly see what are the models needed. So definitely we would need a user module, username, user phone number, blah blah blah, maybe. Then we should also have something like we should also have a expense. So expense in the sense uh, it has a bill amount and number of people who are involved and how they are involved. Okay. Then let us if a user if he's uh, in debt of a user other user, let us model it as a graph. So I mean, let us create a graph module. Okay, let us see how user should look like. So user should have an ID, user should have a name, user should have an email, and they can also have a mobile number. Okay, now how can a user be initialized? ID you initialize this way, and then name, and then that's how a simple user can be defined in the system. In graph, let us have some representation for graph. So I am using an ordered map of an ordered map to create a graph where the first key is user and user ID. So for a user ID 1 to user ID 2, what is the amount that he needs to pay? That is a simple graph that we are creating. And then let us see the expense. It's easy to create a struct. Now instead of creating the class, we can also create a class for the models. Should be same. Then what does the expense look like? Expense means a bill will have an amount, and then we'll have a user paid ID, user who has paid, that is the ID, and then a list of users involved in the transaction, and then what is the type of the split, whether it is equal strategy or exact strategy, and then if at all it is a exact strategy, we will also have the amounts due for each and every user, and then we can initialize it. This is a small constructor that has written for expense user trade ID equal to this one, user one equal to type equal to t. So we have all the models ready with us. Now let us go to service. What are the service interface that we need to implement, and then based on that we'll slowly implement different modules, and then we will finally stitch all the modules together and then run it. So first of all, splitwise interface. So any service should have an interface on to tell what is the capability of the service. So first of all, the service should also show in the what it does is this function prints all the users and the users who needs to pay to this user. Okay, it's just a print method to print what's happening with the system, guys. It gives a list of user and all is under all the users that needs to pay that user. Then we will try to add a user by using name, email, phone number, and then maybe we are taking name, email, phone number, and then do we need so many? 1 second. So we can also give ID here. Okay, we can also give the ID here, and we can do it different. We can have different ways where user can create ID and then give it to us, or add user returns a user ID, even that is possible. Okay, to make it simple, I'm taking the ID from user for now, but maybe a proper way would be the system should should create ID and then return it. Okay, show for a particular user ID, like who all should pay to particular user, and then so here and also system should also give service should give a capability to add expense, in the sense to add a particular bill to the system. Okay, this is the interface. Let me create an implementation file for it. So I'm inheriting from the interface, implementing these methods. Then I will create a CPP file for this. Okay. So this implementation file, it tries to implement the four methods of the splitwise, and then okay, did you win this one? So okay, then this I can get rid of the error. Unknown type name string. Okay, here maybe I will add string. Okay, what is the issue now? Expected class name. Okay, because I did not add it here. Still failing because I did not add expense. Okay, I should add it in interface only. I need to add my models here. Okay, then unexpected class name. Okay, did you mean this one? Okay, expense, it means okay. And I'm also using vector, so it is a string here. Yeah, will succeed. So we have splitwise implementation. Now we should also have, let us have a user repository and graph repository, because whenever you add and delete a user, we need to have a database for it, right? So let us have a repository. So user repository, it should give me capabilities to add and delete, add, get and delete a user. For now, just add and get would do enough for us. Then I'll create a user repository class for me. So here I'm directly creating user repository.h and user repository.cpp. Here we can actually create a user repository interface as well. Let me do that. So why am I creating too many interfaces? So that's because when each module should only depend on other modules interfaces, they should not depend on concrete implementations. That's the reason why we are using interfaces everywhere. And the advantage, why should we even have interface? Because by using interface, we can avoid the dependency of concrete dependencies. So now whenever someone wants to take a dependency, they just take a dependency on the interface. They need not know what is the actual implementation class, right? That's the reason, and we should try to use interfaces whenever we need to take dependencies. So definitely this database should give me a capability to add a user and then get a user. Okay, this is the interface, and then let me include the user model. So this is how models looks like. Then user repository just need to include this interface and implement it. Then here we need to implement this class, so I will need to first of all implement these two functions, right? So in here I need to make it interface abstract methods, so that whoever is implementing this interface should actually implement those two functions, these two functions. Now here I can directly use it by unordered map. So in user, what I can do is I can directly do this one. Then if map dot find of string space id, and dot space map dot id. So this is a simple implementation of in-memory database for user repository. Similarly, we would need a in-memory database for graph as well. So let me create a graph one. So what are the capabilities of this interface? So here it should give me capabilities to show all the users in the graph, and then show a particular user. Show in the sense who are all the users who are indebted to this user. And then I should also be able to add an amount for user 1 to user 2. It means user 1 needs to pay user 2 this much amount. This is what graph repository should have these capabilities. So let me create an actual implementation of this interface. Right. So let me include this interface. So let me make this virtual and then pure virtual methods to make this an abstract class. What is the use of me creating an abstract class in C++, guys? No one can create an object of this class. Okay, they can create a reference to it, but they cannot create an object of this interface class, right? So let me create an actual implementation of this one. So in this one I need to implement these three methods in graph repository. So now I feel I need not have a graph representation here. I can directly put this in the database, in memory database. So let's remove this one, this graph. I don't see a need for this one. So inside this G, what I need to do is, so here we also need right. Let me implement this show under every method of here, every method here. So first of all, let me implement add amount. In this one, what we need to do is g of string space user1 and then user2 and then amount. This is what you're doing it. So then u2 plus equal to amount. So this is what we are doing here. We can actually add validations, something like taking user repository, searching whether this user id is valid or not, user2 is valid or not, and then you can add it. But for now I am not doing those validations. I am adding that as a comment. If the time permits, I will do it. Now for showing for a particular user id, right, what can I do? So simply what I will do is I will directly for a particular user search with this user and then right. So if of it1 second is never equal to 0, print something like for this first user needs to pay this guy how much, this much amount of money. If it is less than 0, what we need to do is make this one 1 and this one this. If it is equal to 0, we don't print anything. Now for we need to do for every guy, right? So what I will do is simple. That's how I can actually, here if you see, I am doing compile time polymorphism. Okay, I am creating same function name, but I am changing the parameters, and compiler will know if I send a parameter, I need to call this function. If I don't send any parameter, it needs to call this function. Okay, so this is compile time polymorphism. So we have the repository class also ready, guys. We have models, we have service. Then let us see some of the commands. Okay, in commands, so what are the different commands that service should provide? So it should add an expense, show for user, and show for all the users. Now, why should we even do commands? If at all in the main method, I can directly invoke these functions. That should be enough for us. So I'm not doing any command class for now. Command module is not needed. Only if command module makes sense when in the problem they explicitly tell us that take input as a string and then parse it. Then we can create a command class and then use factory button. If at all in the main method, we can like main method in the sense this one in the driver class, if can directly invoke the service interface, then that would simplify a lot for us. Okay, so let us see the strategy. So definitely we need two strategies, right? Equal strategy and exact strategy. In equal strategy, all the other users who are involved should pay equal amount to the user who has paid the bill. And in exact strategy, user user use the list of users and their respective split, right? So that would be, yeah. So now if you think about it, we need to create, so here in add expense, we are creating an expense object. Now in expense, we are creating this object, right? Now, now how can we create an expense object based on the input, right? So that one we can create a strategy and then use factory pattern for that, okay? So let me create example and then easy show it. Okay, so let us say we have a split strategy. In this interface, so what should be the capabilities of this split interface, guys? So first of all, it needs to void get. So maybe that sounds like a factory pattern. So before going to split strata, yeah. So this one here, what we can do is that so maybe here they take expense in terms of a string, okay, and then yeah, I think this much should be enough. Any strategy, they need to take the expense as a string, and internally they should update the database and they should update the users appropriately. Okay, this is the strategy. Now there should be two types of strategies. Exact strategy. So let me include. So let me include that and then implement this guy where I need to implement this what void expense. Okay. Now we will see how to add expense appropriately. Similarly, we should also have a equal strategy. Right? Now, how can we create strategies on the go? Now, for that, we need a split factory. Split factory What it can do, what it needs to do is it needs to be able to get a strategy out of it. Okay, get a strategy interface out of it. And then it needs to take a string expense in the form of string. Now we should have an implementation for this interface. So we are using split strategy interface, so we should definitely include that. Then let me include the split factor interface. Okay, so now here we need to so if at all the type, if at all type is double equal to equal return space, we need to have exact strategy.h, then equal. So I said equal here, so it should have an equal, and then exact. If it is exact, you need to return exact strategy, right? And then here is return null. Now whenever exact strategy or equal strategy, they need to add an expense. They should also have access to graph repository, right? So you need to include you need to give a repository point, graph repository pointer, so that these expenses can go to database and update expenses accordingly. So you need to create a repository and then store it. Okay, similarly we should do it for equal as well. Now in split factory as well, you need to store it same way. Because split factory as well should send it in the while creating here. Now we have concrete, we have skeleton level implementations and groupings ready. Now we need to implement some of the functions and also implement exceptions class once the demoable project is ready. Okay, so let me go from the top level and see if there are some things that needs to be implemented. So definitely I need to add this expense. Okay, so we need to see if it is a equal exact strategy type, how should the like how should okay, maybe I can do something like in add expense. Whenever in the service level they can add expense in terms of string, no need of in terms of expense. Okay, so that I can do proper processing in the expense type. Okay, so maybe first they will say the type and then they will give me the expense, and then based on the type I will okay add it. Now in exact strategy I get an expense in terms of a string. I need to do something like I'm assuming user one. This is how it will I will assume the input. Now so in add expense, okay, so user one, and then what is the bill amount, and then list of users who are involved. Okay, this is how I'm assuming the input would be there for exact strategy. What is the user amount, like 25, so user 1 not be there, user 3 50, and then user 4 something like 50. Okay, so user 1 has paid 125, user 2 owes 25, user 3 owes 50, user 4 owes 50. So I'm assuming the input would be something like this. Now I need to split based on the space and then process it appropriately. So now first of all I will need a get int for a string, and then let me also Google how to create get words. So if at all I give a get words to it, so it will give me words split by space. Okay, so now I need to create an expense out of it, right guys? So string space user paid ID is definitely words of 0, then what is the amount involved is get int of words of 1, then users involved. For simplicity what I will do is I will assume the input like this. Okay, now in users involved I will also do something like number of users involved. I'll take as the third input so that I know how to parse it easily. Number of users involved equal to get int of words of 2. Now involved is now integer space index equal to I'm at 0 1 2 0 1 2 3 at 3. I'm at 3 now. I'm at 3 now. So then number of users involved I plus plus. Okay, users involved dot push underscore back of WhatsApp index plus plus. Okay, then amounts due equal to, similarly again I will do this. So now I got all the required details needed to create an expense out of it. So I need the amount and then user paid ID. If you see the model of the expense, so this is what I need: user paid ID, and then users involved, then amounts due, whatever. So this expense need not have a type here. Users involved, okay, need not have a type at all. So I got a expense. I am able to create an expense out of the expression. Similarly, I can create these utility functions in the interface so that I need not create an equal. In equal also what I need to do is I will need to do similar thing in equal. In equal strategy, let me assume how the input looks like. Okay, so I'm assuming like this. Okay, so this will not be there now. So this is how the input will be there. User 1 paid, and then split this 125 among all the users. If at all user 1 is needed, then you would then we just need to skip it and then create it accordingly. Now, so I'll get the words, then user paid ID, integer amount, number of users involved equal to, then users involved I created, then amounts due, is equal to, what I will do is, here because it is equal strategy, what I will do is amount divided by number of users involved. So this is what amounts to looks like. Then I will create an expense out of it. Makes sense. Then okay, here, so now here we did not return an expense pointer, but actually we can then we can do something like this. Okay, here we did it, then read space add expand, maybe something like here maybe instead of add expense we can do something like get expense, and then driver class can actually think of putting it into the database. Okay, so there is an expense star, now because I'm not doing any persistence in the graph, I don't need any graph pointer, graph repository pointer. So with this has actually simplified our split factory as well. Now strategy module is completely implemented. Now splitwise interface, I definitely need to implement service in graph repository. All the other things are actually implemented already. So let us now try to implement our service. So let's try to implement the splitwise functionality. So for showing the users, what we can do is, let me try to open the header file on the left side and implementation on the right side. So definitely we need a user repository and graph repository for our splitwise, right? So let me include them. So in repository, I will need a graph repository. Similarly, I need graph user repository. I don't need the entire thing, I just need the interface. Then graph repository, user repository. Then while creating an object for splitwise, user can give me the repositories. I'm using dependency injection here, guys. So while creating the object, I'll get all the resources. Something very similar to ARIA RI, resource allocation is resource initialization pattern. Using namespace repository. Then you are equal to you. Then while showing user, what I will do is in graph repository, I'll just call show, right? Then while showing for a particular user, I'll just call for a user ID, here. Now for adding a user, what I need to do is add a user. I need a user thing. So I will need user ID, then username, user email, user phone number. So I will need ID, name, email, or phone number. Okay. So that is as simple as adding a user, then adding an expense. So I would definitely need a expense here. So I would need a expense repository. Split factory, right? So I need by using strategy, I will first get the split factory interface. Then using namespace strategy split factory interface with the split factory. Create split factory. Then I would get an expense out of, okay, first I will get a strategy, auto space strategy equal to get strategy with this type, and then auto space expense equal to strategy type get expense of this expense, and then now I have expense, right? So I just need to add, okay, expense. I just need to add in the graph repository, right? So I want to see the expense definition so that it's easy for me. Now here I need to got it. So for integer space I equal to 0, I less than users involved. Expense uh, expense dot or expense dot user involved expense. Okay, what is the issue? Get expense. What is it giving me? It's not giving. So why is it not going? Okay. So first of all, what is get strategy giving me? Get strategy gives me a split interface. So I will do something like this. So now get expense. Okay, there is nothing like that. Why? Get expense. I have a expense type here. Then here in expense, out of integer space, I unknown type name. Okay, because I am not using models. Unknown type name expense. Okay, so what is the issue, guys? Maybe I need to go to let me include expense. Then in expense, users involved dot size I plus plus. So let me minimize this one like this. Now for each user, I also have the amount due in amounts due, right? So in graph repository, add amount with expense user paid ID, and then expense user involved of I, comma amount is expense amount due of I. So let me show this one. Maybe if I press enter, it will be clear. Okay, this is how I'm adding. Now enter will fail. Okay, implicit instantiation of. Okay, hash include string. Then what are the build issues? So okay, implicit instantiation of this one. Okay, right. Expense is not defined for you. Okay, I will let me include that. Expense.h. Now what is the issue? Okay, it will come there. Then expected after class. Okay. So finally, we have also implemented the service for us for add expense. In repository, we already implemented everything. In models, we have implemented. Let us now, without any delay, let us write the driver class for us. Right. So now, first of all, we need to let me open a new tab. What are all needed for splitwise interface? Not even splitwise here. So first of all, to create them, I need 3 of the interfaces. So I need to first of all do in repository. In repository, I need graph repository, and then user repository. That's what I want. Then we need split factory. Strategy maybe split factory interface. Then I would also need to do then repository strategy, everything I've kept it. Now I need to initialize these 3 things. Split factory, Okay. Okay, so what happened here? Cannot initialize variable with an R value of this one. Okay, why is it so? Graph repository, is it not inheriting everything? Okay, because there is some issue here. Okay, we'll do that. We'll go to here. First of all, I need a string, so I need to include a string. So I will do this one. Then there are 15 errors yet. Unknown like name, graph repository. I think I added using namespace yesterday already. Use of undeclared identifier, unordered map. So I would need unordered map for me. Okay, it will, I think error should go away slowly. Then use of undeclared identifier equal strategy, because I included them, and then I need to also use strategy here. Okay, then expected colon. Okay, namespace public. Okay, I think I need to do class and then inside a namespace. Namespace with strategy, and then colon. Same thing with I think it's split factory as well. There is a colon missing. Then in a equal strategy as well. This should be this one. Then namespace. Then strategy. So I'm basically trying to get rid of the compilation errors, guys. Expected after colon, I did that. Return space. I think I missed a new here. No matching function for call. Okay, because I when in that interface I did a get what's right. Should come. Okay, so basically this is the expense which I need to get. Then what else? Extraneous. Okay, pushback off. Okay. Okay, two duplicate symbols for. Okay, in target for project Splitwise, duplicate symbol for getInt. Okay, yes, it is telling there is a getInt function which is duplicate initialized. So okay, getInt is apparently coming twice because it is used in equal strategy and then exact strategy. That is fine, but is that the right C++ not? Okay, two duplicate symbols for splitwise of okay. Okay, looks like get words and getInt, they are getting duplicate done. So if not defined, then only we are defining it, and then only I am again creating it. Okay, looks like we have some issue. So let me put it in, instead of in the base class, I will put it in exact and equal separately. Let me see, because time we cannot. Maybe we will, a proper way would be create a util folder. I think let me create a util. I think that should be a better one. Utils, and then I will create a new file utils.h. In that util, we will put these methods, right? Maybe inside a namespace. So now this way, it's very easy. In exact and equal, you just need to remove this one and then include the util utils.h and then using namespace utils. So this is how we can what we can do in equal and exact. Will succeed. So finally we got rid of all the compilation errors. Now let us go to main folder. Here I created this one. Now I need to create an object for service. Service Splitwise. Split factory. Okay. I think I meant Splitwise. Okay. Using namespace service. Splitwise interface, splitwise from gr, ur, sf. Now I want to see what are all the capabilities of service. So I will go here and then I will see splitwise interface. So basically it can show things. Okay. So what I will do is service show. I will first see that there are no users. Then inside show, maybe I will add some inside show. So here maybe I will add some equal. That's easy for me to debug. Okay. Now first I will see that there are no users. Then I will add one user saying u1 with u1 name, u1 email ID, and then phone number 1. Similarly, I will do for u2, and then I will do for 4 users. u3, 2, and then 3, 4. Now I have all the users added. Now I will do show again to see that if there are no dates available for any user. Then I will add some expense. So first of all, add expense of type equal, and then for equal I want to see the format. It is this one, u1, u2, u3, 4. Now I will again do is show. So let me run it. Okay, build fail because there is a colon missing. Okay. So it is running right now. For the first time, Xcode takes some time to compile. So let us give it a couple of minutes. Okay. Basically, 31 is there, right? So u1 needs to pay u1 31 rupees it seems. So u1 need not pay to himself, right? So we can do one optimization. Let me go to add expense. Maybe I'll go to add expense in this one. Maybe inside the graph we can do it. Graph, if u1 is not equal to u2, then only add it. This one it's easy to see it. So only this one. Now 125 is not divisible by 4, so I will do 160 so that it's easy for us to understand. So clearly we can see that U3, U4, U2 needs to pay U1 40 rupees. That seems like a good competition. Then let me do exact in exact way. Let me comment out equal, and then in exact strategy what is the one. So U1 paid 125, but U2, U3, U4, this is the way. So let me see if this builds. So you can see that U4, U3, U2, these guys need to pay this 150, and let us do this one. So they should be added. Yes, they should be added. Now let us. So let us settle the things. Okay. Let us say U2 paid 65 rupees, and then there is only one guy involved, U1, and U1 needs to pay 65 rupees. Okay, I'm settling out for all the users. U3, U4, U3 needs to pay 90, U4 needs to pay 90, and then once you do show here, there shouldn't be anything. Okay, so first of all it came here, and then U1 needs to pay U3 65. Okay, so basically there is some issue. Okay, it should be 90 here, but maybe that is the. Okay, so let me comment out all the show commands to see that there is no output finally. Okay, so from where is this one coming? U1 needs to pay 90, U1 needs to pay 65, U1 needs to pay 90, and then wait. So let me keep a breakpoint and then debug. So here nothing happened. G add expense, add expense, add expense. Okay. Okay. So basically you need to go to this guy graph show and then G. Okay, G has 4 elements where first one graph has 4 users, U3 exactly, U3, and then okay with U1 there is still 90 rupees. Okay, I think there is some small issue that I need to fix it. So maybe after adding user, let me debug this way. After each and every step, if I do add show, then that is better. Yes. So after this one, 40, 40, 40, that is correct. Now after this one, yeah. So after this one, U4, U3 needs to pay 90, 90, and then 65. That seems fair. Now I am adding an expense, so I will move this show after this step. So here I said U1 has already paid, right? So here there is some issue. I need to debug this step. So once I go to add expense and then I do this one, then there is this GR in add amount, okay? In this one, first of all U1 is U2, U2 is U1, amount is 65, correct? Then inside G, what is there? Inside G I can see that there is size 3, okay. Okay, inside G. Oh, okay. Got it. So whenever I'm doing this way, I should also keep a reverse mapping, right, guys? So for when U1 needs to pay U2, that is this way. So when one guy needs to take, some other guy should receive it, right? So that way we can keep bookkeeping of everything. So now I will go to main.cpp and then I will do show at the end. All show commands, I will just remove it. and then finally there should be nothing. See, all the dues are already paid off. So yeah, that's about the Splitwise, guys. We have created util strategy, service repository models, and everything. We can similarly add some more exceptions that we did in the previous video, like in Connect 4, we created some exceptions to see to do exception handling, right? We can actually add some exceptions and then use it in our models, but it all depends on the time. Okay, if you have time in the interview when you are doing machine coding, you can add exception, and here you should also make it thread safe. Now, if you see, in the entire functionality, we should only make the database thread safe, because inside service, inside service, what we are doing is we are relying on database functions, right? The service functionality functions are stateless. So only place where I need to add a thread safe code is here. So I will just add a mutex and then mutex space m. So why am I adding mutex, guys? This unordered map is uh, this unordered map is not thread safe in C++. That's why. So I will do like this. So this way, here is where we are updating the unordered map. Before that, I'm taking a lock. Similarly for graph repository, here we can again add mutex here. Show is a read methods. You need not take mutex there. Only you need to take mutex here when you are updating that. So first, in any machine coding round, you need to come up with components which are needed, like models, repository, service, exception, strategy, utils. First, you need to have a demoable code ready, and then make it demoable. After after all this, you can think of adding exceptions and making the code thread safe. Okay, and some of the basic patterns that will be useful everywhere is using interfaces everywhere, and also making use interfaces dependent on other interfaces. Then you can talk about the dependency injection, where Splitwise takes all the dependencies which are needed, and then you can use factory pattern. Most of the machine coding rounds have factory patterns here. Exact strategy, equal strategy are some of the two factories, right? In future, if you want to add one more strategy, you just need to add a class here which inherits split strategy interface, and then change the code here. That's it. No application code, nothing, nowhere it is needed to be changed. Only the strategy, whenever you are creating an expense out of the string, that needs to be inherited and implemented. So it is as simple as that. So if you want to know how to add exceptions, you can look at my Connect 4 video. If you have some doubts on machine coding concepts, you can look at my machine coding concepts video. Hope you have enjoyed the video, guys. Thank you.